everybody, welcome to today's video. It is going to be all about how to be more productive in your life. I have some hacks coming from the queen of procrastination. Like in college, I used to do my tests and homework pretty much a few minutes before it was due. If you haven't been here before, my name is Kian. I make videos all about staying motivated, self-help, being positive, kind of just like lifestyle. So I'm so happy to have you here. If you are not subscribed, please do that. I put on my glasses for this video because I felt like I look a little bit more credible. So tell me if it's working. Do I look smarter? Anyways, let's get into the tips. I hope y'all don't mind. I have my computer with my notes here. Okay, so I actually got a lot of these tips from the book, The Productivity Project. If you haven't read it, it's by Chris Bailey. I'll leave a link to it in the description. It is jam-packed with like all things productivity and how to get better at it. So I definitely recommend it. But for those of you who don't want to read and just kind of want the main takeaways from the book, I'm going to share with you those tips now that I've actually applied and I find very useful. Okay, so tip number one is timing your tasks. So tasks are easier when you know there's an ending to them, or you put a time limit on it, because like doing a whatever 10-page paper sounds miserable, but working on a paper for 45 minutes is definitely more manageable. And I think when you set a timer, it kind of helps you focus because there's an ending, so you kind of get more done because you're like, I only have to do this for 45 minutes instead of I have to do 10 pages worth of writing, if that makes sense. So set a timer for your task, whether that's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours, depending on what you need to get done. So for example, if I need to clean up my apartment, I'll just set a timer for 30 minutes. And whatever I get done in that 30 minutes is what I get done. And I find I typically get done more than I normally would. Something to go along with this tip is the timer cube. I have not used it, but I have had friends use it. And it's just a cube that you can turn on, I think, different sides for how long you want to time things. It's like $15 on Amazon. I personally just use my timer app on my phone, but you can decide whatever makes it more fun for you. Another tip to go along with timing your task is doing a off and on schedule. So when I used to work, I would do work for 25 minutes and then I would take 5 minutes to go through my phone, answer text messages, whatever that is. You can kind of focus those 25 minutes knowing that you'll have 5 minutes to do all those things that might be distracting you. Okay, my second tip is to make tasks more attractive. Give them a little sex appeal. You want your tasks to be sexy AF, let me tell you. And I got this tip from the book again, and basically the 6 triggers of procrastination are if a task is boring, difficult, frustrating, unstructured, lacking in reward, and lacking in personal meaning. So those things can all trigger you to procrastinate. And basically you can tackle all those check marks depending on what that task is to you in different ways. So if you think a task is boring, for example, make it fun. I personally love to work at coffee shops. So that's how I make a task more fun, is I'll go to a coffee shop. You can go to a restaurant and do your task over dinner. You could buy a fancy drink and do your task while sipping on a nice vodka cocktail. So that is a way that you can kind of give your tasks more sex appeal and make them more attractive. Some other examples, if it's difficult, you can dedicate yourself time. You can like time your task. Okay, it's a difficult task, so I'm only gonna work on it at 20 minutes at a time because I know if I work on it longer, I just get too overwhelmed and frustrated. You can break it down into step-by-step like subtasks to make it easier. You can create a concise plan. Those are all ways to tackle those type of tasks. If the task is lacking in personal meaning, you wanna tie some kind of meaning to it. So for example, doing your taxes, you can kind of remind yourself that after you do your taxes, you will get a tax return and that money will help your family, or that money you will spend on X, Y, and Z. So just giving the task more personal meaning. And the last one is it's lacking in a reward. And I mean, it's always nice to say, if I do this, I'm gonna treat myself with this. So one thing he recommended in the book was to give yourself like $5 or $2 for every like 10 minutes you work on the task for, and or 15 minutes, whatever you choose. And that money can be put towards a new shirt or whatever you want. So basically just giving yourself a reward for completing that task and just tackling all of those triggers of procrastination in as many ways as possible. Okay, the next tip to be more productive is to figure out your biological prime time. Now, he talked about this a lot in the book, and basically everyone has a different BPT, and that's just when you have the most focus and energy. So I found when I worked a 9 to 5, around 3 o'clock, I would just be no use at all. I did not have focus. I was just like, typically it was like after lunch, I just had no focus. But then maybe around like 10 o'clock, I noticed that I got tasks done the fastest or whatever it is. So basically you can figure out your BPT by kind of tracking it down. So maybe for a week, every 30 minutes or every hour, rate your energy and focus level on a scale of 1 to 10. A lot of times I find that I can really focus when it's close to bedtime. And basically you want to put your most adverse and like difficult tasks within your biological prime time, because that's when you will be most efficient. So stop trying to force yourself to work at a time that your biological self like cannot, it just doesn't perform well during that time. Once you figure that out, you can schedule out your task a lot easier to be more productive. Tip number 4 is to stop committing your future self to tasks. So I think a lot of us view our future selves as strangers, so it's really easy for us to say, oh, I'll do that then. But what you don't realize is you in the future is you now, and you're kind of putting a lot on your future self when you don't know how like frustrated and overwhelmed your future self is going to feel because you keep doing that. So that's just something to keep in mind, that putting things off is just giving your future self more things to do. Whereas if you just stop procrastinating and do a little bit of that task, your future self will not be as overwhelmed, if that makes sense. Tip number 5 is to listen to a focus playlist on Spotify, or I'm sure you can find them other places, but I found that this helped me focus and zone in on my work a lot better. I listen to the deep focus playlist, and it's basically just kind of like background music without any words, because I find, especially if I'm working on something where I need to type out things, it's hard to listen to music at the same time because the words are kind of distracting. So what I like to do is put on my deep focus playlist, and for some reason it just helps me zone in. Another thing I used to do when I was writing papers in college is I would have a YouTube video playing while I was writing, and that kind of helped me focus, but I've decided that the deep focus playlist is probably the best route for me. Tip number 6 is to create lists, and this is kind of self-explanatory, but I kind of want to dive in a little deeper. In the book, he talks about creating a waiting list, and also basically just creating lists for literally everything. So waiting, like packages that you're waiting for, money that you're waiting for, a check that you're waiting to process, like anything like that, because, and it goes like for anything you have to do. But the trick is you just want to put it all on paper, because if you find yourself, when I don't write things down and I just keep thinking of things and making a mental tally list, I tend to feel a lot more overwhelmed, and in turn I cannot focus on what I'm doing because I am trying to remember all these things. So the best thing you can do for yourself is just brain dump anything and everything that you think you need to put on a to-do list, because if not, it's going to be cluttering your brain and taking away your focus from what you're trying to focus on. And to go along with that, you may have these long lists, but what you want to do is each day just pick 3 things on that list or 2 things on that list that you want to focus on or get done. Making a 20 item to-do list is very overwhelming to your brain. So I think by picking 3 things that you want to get done each day is a lot more manageable, and then anything you do after that is just a bonus. But I find I get way more done if I pick 3 things over creating a list of 10 things. So that is a tip to go with making lists. Okay guys, so those are my 6 tips for this video, but I'm sure I can think of a lot more. So if this was helpful for you, let me know. Let me know what your favorite productivity tips are in the comments. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. As I said, that book will be linked in the description if you guys want to get your hands on it. I got it on Audible and in the physical form. It's definitely one I would recommend having both, or at least the physical copy, because he gives you tasks and experiments to do after every chapter, which is awesome. It's very interactive, so I highly recommend that book. Anyways, I hope you guys have a fantastic week, a great, amazing day, and I will see you next time.